This is Tracy here with another edition of a View from Tracy's Point, and please don't pass out because I am doing this video in person. Okay, so if you have been rocking with me since 2016 when I first started this channel, you know I used to appear on camera doing all of my videos, and then over the past, well, I haven't really been on a lot over the past year, but the 4 years prior to that, I started out covering the R. Kelly case. And so I was on camera in the beginning, but then when I started reading the transcripts and going over the court coverage, it was just very time consuming. You know, a video could take like 8 hours, and then I had to chop it all up, you know, reading all that stuff. You guys know I would lose my voice after so many hours. And so it was just easier to do the videos, like record myself talking and then put the videos up. And so people have reached out to me. They're like, where are you? Are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. I just didn't know what to do with the channel. Okay, then YouTube started harassing me, you know, telling me that, you know, I need to be creating some content. Okay, I can't just let the, you know, the channel sit out there. You're going to lose subscribers, that type of thing. And so I've really just been trying to decide where I want to go with the channel, and then every now and then I would just post a video to appease YouTube, like, hey, I'm still a content creator, I still want my channel. So what I have decided that I am going to do, I know one thing I want to do is we'll do like recaps of the Country Wayne skits. I mean, do you guys watch Country Wayne? I love his skits, and I'm just sitting there talking to the computer when the skits are going on, you know, leaving comments on the videos. And then I was like, well, that's something you can do with your channel. You can recap, you know, give your reaction to the videos. And I'm excited about doing it now because it seems that Wayne has some new writers. I know over the past month, it seems like the writing has gotten so much better. I don't know if they're reading the comments where we're like, okay, that makes zero sense. Why would you say that? Why would you do that? Like, that is misinformation. And so maybe the writers have stepped up, or he's gotten some new writers, but the acting and the writing has been so much better. So I decided I am going to give that a try. And then that'll help me keep a lot of content coming as I, you know, kind of navigate my way through this whole YouTube creator thing, because so much is changing in the world today. But before I get to the Country Wayne skits, these phone calls, these jail calls with Shirley Strawberry and Ernesto, okay, they have the internet on fire, okay? And my bestie called me and she was like, girl, I can't believe you're not covering Shirley and Ernesto on your channel with these jail calls. I was like, oh, I saw something pop up, but I never did click on it. So I took some time, y'all, and watched them videos, and I was like, Lord Jesus, okay, this is just too much. So everybody's talking about the phone calls, so I don't want to do a video talking about the phone calls. So as you can tell from my title, it says Shirley, this is Tracy, and I know before it was like Barbara, this is Shirley. I think that's how it went in the actual song, Woman to Woman. Okay, but this is Shirley, this is Tracy, okay? And I need to talk to you, woman to woman, about why it is not cool to be a ride-or-die chick at our age. Okay, well, not our age, because Shirley is older than I am. But in any event, before we jump into, you know, the ride-or-die thing, because I actually thought of that topic because I wrote a blog like 10 years ago that was called Why I'm Not a Ride or Die Chick, right? So now I'm going to give Shirley some perspective on why she should not be a ride or die chick, especially at the age of 69. Like, girl, you're going down the hill right now. You know, you don't know how many more miles you have to go before you get to the bottom of the hill. And so we can't be wasting our time on slicksters, okay? But before we get into that, you know, I have to give the backstory because not everybody is aware of who Shirley Strawberry is or what we are talking about. So we're going to give a little backstory on Shirley, a little backstory on these phone calls, who is Ernesto and why is Ernesto in jail. And the man name is Ernesto Williams, but she called him Ernesto, so we're going to call him Ernesto, okay? But we are going to talk about Ernesto. You are a mess. You and Sonia, okay? Both of y'all off the chain. And Sonia need to be in that jail with you, okay? So anyway, what's interesting about Shirley, for those who don't know who she is, her name is Shirley Strawberry. I'm not sure if Strawberry is her legal last name or if that's just her name on the radio, but she is a co-host on the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and she has been so since, I believe, 2005. Her husband, Ernesto Williams, has found himself in jail for scamming people. He is a scammer. Now, Shirley, girl, not only is he a scammer, y'all, but he's younger than her, okay? That makes it even worse. So she has a long-standing segment on the Steve Harvey Morning Show called The Strawberry Letter, and she gives relationship advice. People write in, she reads the letter, and then she gives her opinion. The other co-hosts, they chime in. So now we found out that she is the Strawberry Letter of the Week, okay, after these phone calls were released. So Shirley met Ernesto Williams, and a year or two later, they had this beautiful, lavish wedding. I believe they met around 2013, 2014. I know he proposed in 2014. And so they were married in January, early January of 2015. So they've been married, you know, for quite a while. This isn't like she met this guy a couple of years ago and found out he was a scammer. She was actually married to him for several years while he was scamming. And I don't know, Shirley, why you didn't know he was out there scamming. But anyway, so at the time, he was supposed to be a successful entrepreneur who owned a mobile barbershop for celebrities. So I don't know what happened to that business, because evidently he was getting rave reviews. People were talking about how amazing he is, and he does a great job, but for some reason that didn't seem to satisfy his palate. So still, there are many things, and I'm trying to get this thing to scroll down, but it doesn't want to work. Probably because I have it enlarged so big, so I don't have to put my reading glasses on. Okay, let me get back to where I needed to be, okay? So let me see here. Okay, so many nice things were said about Ernesto when they first met, to the point that Ebony, I believe it was Ebony or Essence, or maybe Ebony and Essence, did an article on Shirley and Ernesto's wedding. She shared how she added love and marriage to her busy to-do list. She said she met her match after deciding to put more energy into her personal life and happiness. And I guess that's something that women do when they get to a certain age. You know, they don't want to, there's this notion about, I don't want to die alone, which I don't understand, because we all die alone, whether there's somebody standing in the room with us, or if we, you know, die. Like, you can be in a car accident, drive down the street by yourself, and so now you done married this person because you don't want to die alone, okay, and then you still end up dying by yourself. So anyway, you have to be happy with yourself and content with yourself, whether you have a mate or not, Shirley. And so anyway, the couple met when a mutual friend introduced them to Ernesto's concierge business, I think it is. And so the friend made a hasty departure after he introduced them, hooked them up, leaving the two of them to connect. He asked her on a formal date the same day. Many people have been reporting that this is supposed to be Steve Harvey who hooked them up, but that is not the case. Steve did not introduce them. It was somebody else out there. So when Shirley and Ernesto got engaged, he reached out to Steve, right? One, to get Steve's permission to marry Shirley. And then the other, you know, I guess he wanted him to be a part of the proposal. And so Steve didn't introduce them. Like I said, there's a YouTube video of Ernesto proposing to Shirley. And in that video, Ernesto calls into the show and talks to Steve about the woman that he loves. He then walks into the studio escorted by Carla, who's one of the other co-hosts, and another woman. Steve doesn't appear in the video, so I'm thinking that he wasn't there because I think Steve is in Chicago and Shirley and the rest of the crew might be in Atlanta, but they have a studio where they actually work out of. I know before COVID, I'm not sure what's going on now because Steve doesn't come on, the Steve Harvey Morning Show doesn't come on where I live at anymore. It hasn't for a really long time. And that's why I was kind of, had to catch up on what was going on with Shirley and this story because it has been many years since they took Steve off the air here. So anyway, so they're all on the phone. Steve is on the phone, Ernesto's on the phone, and nephew Tommy wasn't at work that day. He wasn't on the phone either. I mean, he was on the phone. He wasn't in this studio with them. Whew, let me slow down, okay? So, Ernesto is pretending to be somebody that's calling into the show. So nobody is supposed to know that it's Ernesto, right? But I'm sitting there thinking, why y'all don't know that this Ernesto on this phone, okay? It didn't make any sense to me, but anyway. So it was Shirley's birthday. So Ernesto's on the phone and he's talking about, you know, this woman that he loves, blah, blah, blah. So then the next thing we know, Carla walks in with Ernesto. He's carrying some flowers. Shirley is acting all surprised, like, oh my gosh, she can't believe that this was Ernesto on this doggone telephone call. So two things stood out to me. One, Steve says that he met Ernesto, that they talked extensively, and he was even going to, that Ernesto was going to fly to Chicago to ask Steve for Shirley's hand in marriage. And then Tommy is in the background acting confused and implying that he has never met Ernesto and doesn't know who he is. So I was just like, what is going on here? Because Shirley been dating this man at this point, I know, for, you know, maybe almost a year or a few months leading up to a year, I'm not sure. So that caught my attention because in the jailhouse calls, Shirley mentioned somebody named Miles. And we know that Tommy's last name is Miles. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe Tommy introduced her to Ernesto, but then Tommy ruled that out because he was on the phone acting like he didn't know who Ernesto was, right? Okay. But then I said, okay, well, maybe Ernesto and Tommy became friends over the years because Shirley, you know, has been married to him for quite some time now. But I don't know. I'm just speculating. And Miles might be somebody totally different. Like, we don't know who Miles is. I'm just speculating, okay? I'm trying to put the pieces together. So, let's see. So then the other thing was Shirley, which I've already mentioned. You know, she was sitting there acting like she was clueless as to who was on this telephone call, right? And I was thinking, like, if you in a relationship with somebody, wouldn't you recognize their voice? Like, it didn't seem like they were trying to disguise Ernesto's voice. So why Shirley didn't know that that was her man on the phone, right? And then why didn't Tommy not know? Well, okay, Tommy was acting like he didn't know who Ernesto was, so I guess he hadn't met Ernesto at that point. But I just thought it was really weird that Shirley did not seem to recognize Ernesto's voice. I don't know, that was just weird to me. So let's see. Oh, and then I was sitting there, I wrote in my notes that if you are in a relationship with somebody and you can't recognize their voice. Like, I think if I'm dating somebody and I'm in the grocery store and I hear them talking, I'm gonna be like, whoa, that sounds like so-and-so, right? If we're on the phone and somebody called me and they're trying to pretend like there's somebody else, I'll be like, boy, stop playing. I know this is you. So I'm thinking, if I can't recognize your voice on the phone, I don't know you well enough to be marrying you. But remember, time is running out for Shirley at this point, as she thinks. So anyway, child, she was happy and she accepted the proposal. And here we are today, right? So the wedding photos, which appeared in both Ebony, I think it was an Ebony article, and then Essence may have just did like a little thing on the pictures. The pictures, by the way, that you see in this video are by Ross Oscar Knight, and they have a Pinterest page, I think, and the pictures might still be up there. So anyway, Ernesto says that what attracted him to Shirley was her positive energy. Ernesto, I think what attracted you to Shirley was that she was gullible, and you realized that she was gullible. After meeting her, you were like, oh, she's gullible, and she's famous, and she can connect me to Steve Harvey. I think that's what caught your attention. So he's claiming he had to humble himself as a man to allow God to speak to him through this incredible woman. And so Steve Harvey flew in from taping his daytime talk show in Chicago to escort Shirley down the aisle. So nephew Tommy read 1 Corinthians, and so I believe that's that one about love. And I should know this because in my first book, He Loves Me Not, 1 Corinthians is a big part of that book, okay? But you can't buy that book. It's not in print anymore because I'm doing something special with it, and I'll let you guys know what I'm doing with that book. So it's the go-to scripture. Like if you've ever been to a wedding, you probably have heard that scripture before. So then Shirley's friend, Atlanta jeweler Ty Parker, made the newlyweds wedding set, so that was real special. And then in the picture with Shirley and all her bridesmaids and whatnot, I was trying to understand how none of them knew. Because you always have that one friend. Like, I think I'm that one friend that when my friends introduce me to their new man, I'm sitting there like, like I'm listening to what he's saying, I'm watching how he's moving, then I'm going back asking people like, do you know this person? Do you know this person? But it didn't appear that any of Shirley's friends recognized that he was a scammer. So that means either they didn't care, either they didn't think Shirley was going to listen, or they just don't have good radar. But I think everybody should have that one friend who is able to say, something ain't right here, okay? But Shirley obviously didn't have that, or maybe she did and she just didn't listen because she wanted to be in love, she wanted to be married, and she felt that, you know, she could not spend the rest of her life hanging out with her girlfriends, that she wanted a man in her life and she wanted a companion. So Shirley was grateful that everything went off without a hitch, and it was a beautiful ceremony. Everyone had fun. Her message to single ladies at the time was, God loves us all the same. What's for you is for you. It is coming, girl. So y'all don't listen to Shirley, okay? It's okay to want to be in love, but you got to have your radar up. You can't show desperation. And you know, Steve probably should have sent her a copy of his book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, okay? Because obviously Shirley just wanted to be happy and be in love. So now let's fast forward to the present drama, okay? So there are a lot of videos, as I said, with phone calls between Shirley and Ernesto on YouTube. When my bestie, Tamala, shout out, how you doing, girl? When she called and asked me if I had heard the calls, I was like, oh, hold up, let me go listen to these videos. And I was simply appalled, okay, by the videos. So, I'm always upset whenever somebody's jail calls are leaked. And I know when somebody calls you from the prison, they say that, you know, the calls are monitored and recorded. Okay, but the calls are monitored and recorded for the jail, okay? To make sure that this person isn't plotting their escape, that they're not giving information pertaining to a crime or something like that. The calls are not monitored and recorded so that bloggers can get hold of the videos and then play them on YouTube. So that just like really, it doesn't sit well with me. And I know we all just delving into these people's business, talking, giving our opinion on everything, but it was just something about listening to those calls. Like I just felt like I was, I don't know, like I was spying on them. It just really bothered me. And if you've been following me, you know, since the beginning, then you know that I was once in a relationship with somebody who served 30 years in prison. He actually was sentenced to like 4 life sentences, 80 years, was facing the death penalty, but that got thrown out. This was back during the crack cocaine era, and he was a drug kingpin. Brother served 30 years in prison, and not once did I accept a jail phone call, because I am just not that chick, okay? Just not that chick. But I did help him get out of prison under the First Step Act, that the modifications that Donald Trump did to the First Step Act that President Obama introduced. So he is a free man, and you know, I helped him get out. He's been out for over a year, and I have not seen nor talked to him, because like, no, that's just not me. So you won't have any phone calls, no jail calls or nothing with me, because if we're in a relationship and you go to jail and I know you're guilty of what you did, there's no reason for us to be talking. But that's just me, guys, okay? And I've talked to you, you know, if you, like I said, if you've been rocking with me since 2016, I've told the story about him before. So let's see. So my thing with the phone calls, like I said, I don't think that they should be for public consumption. And if you follow my page, you know, during the 4 years that I covered the R. Kelly trial, ooh, I can't believe it was 4 years. That was all I talked about for 4 years. I think I talked about that child over there with Sweetie Pie's, Tim Norman. I covered some of his case, but I mean, I did the R. Kelly case from start to finish. Read every court document, every transcript, everything, and it was very tiring. It had to take a year off during all of that. But anyway, one of the many polarizing stories from that case was this BOP, Bureau of Prisons officer, who wasn't even at the jail that R. Kelly was stationed at or housed at in Brooklyn, but she used her access code to go into the system and steal his phone calls, his emails, commissary records. She had everything, and she sent them to the blogger Unwind with Tasha K, and then Tasha K, of course, aired everything on her channel. And then she went to one of his girlfriends, because you know, he had these 2 girls living with him, and I shouldn't say girls, he had these 2 young women living with him, Azriel Clary and Jocelyn Savage. And so she went to Azriel Clary because Azriel was in the indictment, but she hadn't told the feds that she was going to cooperate with them. So Tasha K gives all this information, plays the recordings, everything for Azriel Clary, and Azriel Clary ended up turning against R. Kelly because she was upset about what she heard and found out between him and the other living girlfriend. And what they won't tell y'all is that allegedly there was some impropriety going on between him and his female attorney at the time, who is not his current appeals attorney. It was another attorney on the case. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know for a fact if this is true, but evidently some of the information that Tasha K leaked was concerning this attorney. So I know this has been happening for a while, this whole thing with these phone calls. People have websites where you can download the phone calls, and I think you have to pay to download them. So then of course we're on YouTube and people are making money off of the phone calls, and I just think it's wrong, especially as not so much on the inmates part, but on the family members and the loved ones that are calling the inmates and having their business, spread all over the internet. So after my friend shared that there are websites where you can buy the recordings, I did a quick search and learned that in state cases, some will allow access to jail records where most will not. In most instances where the jail phone calls are released is because the people have, or the blogger or whoever wants the phone calls, are filing lawsuits under the Freedom of Information Act to say that the public has a right to the phone calls, and I don't think that the public has a right to the phone calls, but you put the phone calls out there and we'll listen to them, okay? And I'm just gonna feel sleazy and dirty as I listen to them. And then some judges are like, okay, it is public information, and then they'll have the jail release the phone calls, while others stand firm. And then I think some states have laws where they will not. They've already decided that they're not going to turn these phone calls over. So prison phone calls initiated by inmates are recorded and are subject to monitoring. Like, there's no question about that. We already know that that's the law, it's a fact. But these provisions are in place to protect the security of the facility and to protect the public. Prison phone calls placed to an attorney using proper procedures are not recorded or monitored because such communications are subject to attorney-client privilege. However, we learned in the Alex Murdaugh case, I believe this is in South Carolina, in South Carolina, that the jail claims to have accidentally released calls between him and his attorney. So he would definitely, I guess that could be an appealable action, that, hey, you releasing confidential information, but we don't know how far that's going to go, because I think in the R. Kelly case, there was also some attorney phone calls or meetings that were recorded and released that people got a hold of. So while jail phone records are recorded and monitored, they are not considered public records. In other words, recordings of calls made using inmate phone services cannot be subpoenaed or otherwise accessed by the public, but police and prosecutors would have the right to review recordings under certain circumstances. So anyway, a few attorneys, websites speaking on the matter, say that they believe that if enough pushback comes, that eventually a case will make it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have to decide if jail calls should be released. So we have to, those of like me who think it's wrong, we can follow that. So if not, bloggers will be coming for inmate letters and other information that is really none of our business. But until then, we're going to keep talking about this. And like I said, Tasha K was given everything. She was given the phone calls, she was given emails, she was given commissary. She was sitting on her channel reading who all had put money on R. Kelly's books. It was just a mess. Okay, so aside from the entertainment factor, how do you all feel about inmate phone calls being released to the public? If you are calling someone who's incarcerated, do you feel your rights to privacy are being violated by jails releasing calls under the guise of the public having the right to know? And so keep in mind that this has nothing to do with the prison recording and monitoring calls. As a matter of fact, prisons are now testing AI to monitor calls. So very soon, there won't be any humans listening to the calls. The AI technology will have certain keywords that they are listening for. Just like on YouTube, we have to watch certain words that YouTubers can't say because the AI technology is looking for those words, and if those words come up, then they will not monetize your content. So that type of technology is being introduced into prisons. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments on what you feel about the calls being recorded. Do you think it is right? And if you are somebody who has phone calls, has loved ones that are in prison, and you talk to them, like, how would it make you feel that your calls could be sold to a blogger and then aired on YouTube? Okay, now let's get to Mr. Ernesto, okay? So the initial story broke in October of last year, okay? When Roswell, and I might get some of this wrong because it was like so many articles out there, so please forgive me. And if I say something wrong, just let me know down in the comments. And if you've been following me, you know I'll come back in my next video and point out all things y'all told me I got wrong, okay? So the authorities in Roswell, Georgia, arrested 2 people concerning a $1 million business scheme. So investigators say that a 57-year-old Ernesto Williams and 46-year-old, what's her name, Erica King, convinced people to pay them for their business expertise. So they would align themselves with their victims with promises to be able to grow their brands and their missions, life goals, and social media followings, said Roswell police officer Tim Lupo. So police say that Williams and King acted the part and people paid good money for their services. However, investigators say they never provided any services, that it was all a scam. And you know, people are just really out here scamming folks, okay? Because have y'all been following the whole Jay Morrison story? He's the guy, if you're in Atlanta, there's the Legacy Center, and I'm not sure if the Legacy Center and the Black House are the same building. I believe they're the same building, but he started this thing called the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, okay? And I first heard about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund several years ago when I was watching Newbert's church service, and Jamal Bryant did like this presentation, and he was like, hey, this is this young black couple. They have bought this building, and they were actually at the building, bought this building, rehabbed it, they turned it, I thought he said it was going to be into a co-work space, and it's like for entrepreneurs, if you can't afford a office building, you can rent these buildings, rent a office in the building, like when you have meetings with clients, you know, like if you have a home business and then you need to meet with somebody, you could rent these spaces. Also, like, I know it was real popular, we have a place here also where if you're a YouTuber and you can't or don't want to record from your home, you want like a more professional setting, you need the lighting, the camera work, somebody to edit, that type of thing. They have spaces like that. People that do podcasts, you can go rent a space and do your podcast and you pay by the hour, that type of thing. So they're asking for people to donate to this real estate fund. And long story short, $11 million was raised. Now the fund is down to $500,000 and people won't know where their money went, right? And so I might cover that. I might do a video on that. Not sure, because a lot of people are covering it and there's really not much to add to it. But anyway, just letting y'all know the scammers are out there, okay? And you have to do your due diligence and follow up, research these people before you start giving them your money. So Officer Lupa went on to say that we know about more than a dozen victims and over $1 million in monetary and property losses. So Roswell detectives first began looking into Williams and King in June regarding a case of rental fraud at a property in the 900 block of Pine Grove Road. Once detectives started looking into their financial transactions, it led them to the extensive business scheme. So Williams and King both have multiple charges of fraud, forgery, and theft against them. So police say that Ernesto Williams, hold on a second. Let me tell y'all how trifling I am. Okay. So the keyboard, the touchpad on my laptop is going out. I done bought a whole new laptop and I'm just too lazy to put it together and transfer all these programs. And I think I'm just going to take both laptops out to Best Buy and just pay them to do it. But anyway, so I'm having a hard time scrolling on this laptop because the keypad is going out. But anyway, let's see. Police say that Ernest Williams goes by Ernesto or Ernesto. Erica King also goes by Erica Hughley or Erica Hughley Rothschild. So if y'all have had any dealings with her, y'all need to call the Popo, okay, and let them know. So investigators believe other victims have been scammed but have not come forward. There are several open cases for Ernesto. According to the prosecution, there will be more charges coming his way. There was a recent bond hearing for him where they went over several charges. It's really confusing because he has cases in different jurisdictions. Ernesto has just been doing a lot, okay? So, like I said, if I'm getting this wrong or I'm confused, y'all let me know down in the comments. Okay, so since this video really is not about Ernesto, as I said when I first started some time ago, I'm not talking about his charges. I'm not, it's really the point I'm going to make at the end has nothing to do with the charges or him and Shirley's wedding and all of that stuff, but more so to do with what I say to Shirley and other women like her. I don't want to get bogged down in the case itself because, like I told y'all, that R. Kelly case was 4 years long, so I can't give Ernesto 4 years of my life because I don't even know who Ernesto is. Okay, so I don't have no dog in this fight. So, but I will give a brief overview for those who didn't know that Shirley was going through all of this drama that she is going through. So let's see if I can get this right. Okay, let's try this. So it turns out that when the news broke in October of last year, I think I said October 2022, Ernesto was already in jail. Okay, the news made it seem like Shirley's husband had just gotten arrested, but that is not the truth. He was already in jail on more charges. So his first case was filed in July 2022. He had his first appearance and they ordered no bond. So remember in the call, he says that he got an $800,000 bond, and then Shirley was like, okay, but why are you still in here if you got a bond? Right? But then we find out that the bond, I guess, well, I'll get to what happened with the bond, okay? So he later gets a bond in October, which you hear him discuss in the call, like I just said. So in a more recent hearing, they reduced the bond on those original charges. So still he has pending charges in multiple jurisdictions. So getting a bond in one county means nothing if another county is going to be waiting. So you pay this $800,000 bond, you leave the jail, then here come Fulton County. Like, okay, Joker, let's go. So you just wasted $800,000. And I think I did a video a few years ago talking about these bonds and how people don't be getting these bonds back. Okay, like, you go and pay them people that money and get convicted, you're not getting that bond back. You'll be lucky to get your bond back if you're not found guilty. You probably have to sue and pay more money for attorneys to get money back, and then people out here losing their houses and that type of stuff. So anyway, in the second case, which I believe is in Fulton County, his first appearance was in July. So the charges are theft by taking, which is a felony, operation of a credit repair business, and a misdemeanor, another misdemeanor charge. So another count is theft by deception, which has no bond, and a request was made to transfer the case because of his past history. Yes, Ernesto has been arrested before. And I wonder if Shirley knew he was an ex-con, and that's not a bad thing. Because people, go to jail, they turn their lives around and they redeem themselves. I know people who have served time in prison, got out, fell in love, got married, started families, have great jobs, have started businesses. but you still need to have that information, okay, so you can decide for yourself if they are a risk of being a repeat offender. So the two counts on behalf of the citizens, this was one of the documents, the two counts on behalf of the citizens of Georgia charge Ernest Williams with the offense of theft by taking for the said accused in the county of Fulton and the state of Georgia did unlawfully take United States currency of a value of at least $5,000 or less than $25,000 on the property to deprive said owner of said property contrary to the laws of the state. Child, y'all know all this legal jargon. Okay, anyway, a grand jury decided there was enough to charge Ernesto, is what it all boils down to. And let's see. So Ernest Williams with the offense operation of credit repair services organization for the said accused in the county of Fulton, the state of Georgia, did unlawfully affiliate himself with a credit repair service organization by representing that he would improve a person's credit history, credit record history, and rating in return for the payment of money contrary to the laws. So if you don't know, you can't repair nobody's credit. The only way you're going to repair your credit is you're either going to pay them people and ask them to take it off your credit report, or you're going to wait the time, or you could file bankruptcy, okay, and then wait the 7 years for it to come off, or you could just hold out and wait for the time to pass to get it off. But credit repair services, I don't think they actually work, but that is just my opinion. So anyway, child, what else Ernesto is up to? Okay, so in the name on behalf of the citizens of Georgia, do charge and accuse Ernest Williams with the offense of justice, theft of services for the said accused in the county of Fulton and state of Georgia in November, did by deception and with intent to avoid payment normally obtained car repair services of a value of more than $1,500 but less than $5,000, which was available only for compensation from Palmer Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram, which is in Roswell, and for which the accused failed to pay, contrary to the laws of the state of good order, peace, and dignity thereof. Okay. So the past criminal history is the complex division as repeat offender. Okay. So the defendant has at least 5 prior felony convictions in a lifetime of 3 prior felony convictions in the past. Okay, wait a minute. So he has 5 prior felonies in his lifetime, or 3 prior felony convictions in the past 5 years, according to the above governing standing order. Repeat offender cases initially assigned to the non-complex division shall be transferred and appropriately assigned to an elected superior court judge. So you guys know courts operate differently. They have their own different terminology. So I guess this is what's going on in Georgia. Okay, so there are his past histories. So we have theft by receiving, which was in Fulton County, and theft by taking, which is in DeKalb County. This is all in Georgia. Theft by taking in Fulton County, armed robbery in Cobb County, theft by taking in Gwinnett County, armed robbery in Douglas County, and then a statement in Cobb County. I guess he also accused of bank fraud. So his attorney said that they got another alias on Ernesto, and I think it said Victor West. I think they were saying that was one of his aliases that he uses. So his attorney initially confused, and then I think even on the call, Shirley talks about, or him and Ernesto and Shirley talk about the fact that he hadn't heard from the attorney I couldn't figure out if Shirley had paid for an attorney and that was the attorney they were talking about, or if he had a public defender at some point and that was the person not doing their job. You know, kind of confused on who is actually representing Ernesto at this time. So he also has a criminal indictment for theft in services. Count 2 was deposit account fraud, so he was writing bad checks. Oh, child. Some of these, I don't know what's going on. I didn't want to go into it. And then I think he had, oh, let me see what else I wrote here. So there were 4 cases before we even got to the one in October that everybody was talking about, with him being a co-conspirator with Erica Hughes. So Erica Hughes' situation, let's see, he had his first jail appearance. There was 5 counts of conspiracy to commit a felony, and 2 of those counts were dismissed because I believe that the prosecutor or the district attorney did something wrong, confused the charges or something, so she dismissed those. But anyway, I'm not gonna go through all of this with Ernesto got going on, but I did want to say that he has some outstanding charges in California. Okay, so and I think he was getting cars in California and driving them to Georgia and possibly selling the cars or something. He had a whole lot going on. And then you guys know that recently he was charged with some CP charges. And I'm not really sure what that is all about, because it seems like they, you know, the prosecutors will do a lot because they really don't want to take you to trial, because trials cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. You got Young Thug, that's going to cost Georgia millions of dollars to prosecute rapper Young Thug. So they don't really want to take you to trial. What they want is to scare the crap out of you and make you plead guilty to the charges, right? And so a lot of the stuff that you're going to see the prosecutors doing is really to try and get Ernesto to plead guilty so they don't have to waste money taking him to trial. I don't know what's going on with these CP charges. I think the lawyer said he only knew about 1 image, and when I say CP, it doesn't mean that, okay, because I won't get my video for right. So, you know, CP is images and videos. So the lawyer seems to think that there's only 1 image or video. The prosecutors are acting like it's a lot more. No real information has come out about who was in the video, and it very well may not be something dastardly. Okay, it could be an image that could be pretty innocent, okay, but they're going to use it. They were able to get it off of his phone, you know, after they seized all this stuff. They were able to get it, and it could, so for example, I'll say you, no, that's probably not a good example. I know people who do this. It's common. You probably know people where adults and children, actually there was I can't remember what company it was, but there was an advertisement where the father, like the father would be in the shower and the mother would bring the small children and put them in the shower with the father, and there was like a whole lot of uproar where people were saying that that was inappropriate. And I can't even remember what they were selling. I don't know if it was like Dove soap or something like that, but it was a pretty innocent act of parents bathing their young children, right? Well, you can bathe your young children, okay? You just can't record it, because if you record it, then they can say that that's, you know, the word that I'm not going to use, okay? So it could be something as simple as that, or it could be something major. We don't know, okay? But it sounds like a lot of what the district attorneys are doing is they're trying to pile on to try and get this man to plead guilty so they don't have to spend money. And then at some point there, Shirley's daughter, Shirley was telling people not to go and talk to the police, but the daughter ended up going and talking to the police, and then I think he got some more charges as a result of that. So people were wondering if the CP charges were related to the daughter and her children, but that it was not. Her charges are more theft charges. It wasn't that, so he hadn't done anything to his grandchildren. Let's see. Just a lot going on. I'm gonna scroll through a bunch of this stuff. They talked about discovery and Brady material, and there was some conflict. Like I said, the lawyer said he knew of one image. The prosecutors are saying that it was multiple images, which means that they are holding on to evidence, which makes it hard for the defense to prepare their case if the government is not being straightforward with what they are supposed to be doing. Okay, now it is time for me to jump to what I want to do this video for in the first place, which was my woman-to-woman conversation. Okay, so one more thing, child, leading into that. So at some point Shirley had to do some type of declaration, and then the next thing happened is these calls are leaked, and it's probably, I'm thinking this is probably like the second lowest point in her life at this moment, right? So she swore that her name in the document, she swore that her name was Shirley Strawberry. And I'm saying, is her name really Shirley Strawberry, or did she actually give her her legal name? Or maybe Shirley Strawberry is her legal name, I don't know. But anyway, she stated that she's over 68 years of age and that she resides in Fulton County, Georgia. And the facts and the declaration are based on her own personal knowledge. She declared that she is a defendant's wife, that my husband is the listed defendant in the cases. I have been told that in one or more, I don't know what I was trying to say there, so I'm gonna skip over that. She says that I've been identified as either a victim of his or witness to purported criminal acts, to which I respond that I am neither, okay? I intend that the court know once and for all that I am not afraid of my husband, and that I wish for him to be released with no conditions as regards to me, that I wish for him to be able to reside with me or wherever he elects to reside. Right? And that his release be effectuated immediately. All right, it is, let's see, it's further my declaration that I have never made known or to anyone at any time prior or since his arrest any desire contrary to that which is contained in the affidavit, and if a contrary understanding has been previously conveyed to the court or any other, that they have been deceived. I have not been threatened, coerced, nor harassed in any way by any person that caused me to issue this declaration. So Shirley had to go before the court and say, I love him and I trust him and I want him to come home. But we know that things have changed since then, right? Because I think Shirley has filed, she said she filed for divorce, okay? Which I don't think would be a smart move for her to file for divorce, because then you lose that protection of not having to testify against your spouse. But they may be harassing Shirley. Shirley probably tired, ready to move on with her life, okay? And then I already talked to you guys about the Tulsa fund. I was going to say something. Oh, I know I was going to say. So Shirley is 69 years old. She married this man 8 years ago. So she was like 61 or something. Now the Jay Morrison guy with the Tulsa real estate fund, he's married. His wife's name is Ernestine Morrison. So women young and old get caught up, okay, with men and their BS, okay? So it's really not an age thing. It's just sadder, with Shirley being her age, because she may never recover from it, whereas somebody in their 20s or 30s who gets scammed or caught up with somebody who could possibly go to prison, you still have your lifetime, your life ahead of you when you can recover, you can find love again and all that stuff. But for Shirley, she's almost 70 years old, and this has got to really be weighing down on her, because even like with the Ernestine Morrison lady, she's young, but she's like going to the hospital with panic attacks, and she's going through depression and stuff like that, because the accusations that are being made about her husband and about herself is like really stressing her out, but she wants to stand by her man. She believes in him, and she doesn't think that they've done anything wrong. And it seems like Shirley was feeling that same way up until these jail calls, and she was looking like a fool, and they done released the calls, and she talking to Ernesto about Steve Harvey and visiting Steve Harvey's house. And I didn't think she said anything bad about, like, her comments about Steve Harvey and Marjorie were not negative. They were comments that the average person would make if you go to the home of somebody, who has this beautiful home, and you finally get to go in and look around and see everything, and then you go back and tell somebody like, oh my God, the house was gorgeous. Marjorie had this spa, she had like this thing, this machine sort of like Michael Jackson to help with her face, her skincare. Like, she wasn't saying it in a nasty, negative, derogatory way. But she apologized to Steve, and Steve accepted the apology. So about 10 years ago, I wrote this blog, and it was called, what was the name of this dang old blog that I wrote? Oh, 10 signs you may not be a ride or die chick, okay? And so it actually, I can't remember what I was doing when I know. I wrote this blog after this, we had a situation here where this guy, I think he killed a police officer or shot a police officer or something, and his girlfriend, was sticking by his side. She ended up getting arrested, going to jail. And so, yeah, I think I wrote on here. So I was engaged in a conversation about a young lady who did not understand why she was being charged with first-degree murder when it was her boyfriend who pulled the trigger. And it says, see, she was down for the ride when they were getting high, robbing people, and was right by his side when he took out this, this Leo, okay? And so as I thought about the ride and die chick and its significance, I began to think about people I know personally who have been together 10, 20, 30 years, which is a feat within itself. But then I see all they have and continue to endure just to maintain that relationship. And so at this point in time in my life, I realized that I'm probably not a ride or die chick. At least not in today's terms, okay? I believe that even First Lady Michelle Obama, who probably is considered a ride or die by many, has had moments through the years where she's asked her man, then President Barack Obama, because remember I wrote this a long time ago, you want me to do what? Like, I can see Michelle Obama being like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that, and Barack being okay with it, right? So I don't think she's a ride or die. I believe that, she stands up to her man. So I'm going to read this blog to you guys, but I've updated it, with what I would say to Shirley if we had a conversation. So we are going to count down starting with number 10. So what I wrote for number 10 was, you refuse to be dropped off at work, catch the bus, or bum a ride with a coworker so he can hold your car all day to do whatever unemployed or quote unquote self-employed people do all day, okay? So all right, Jody and Yvette, okay, from Baby Boy, how he used to take her car and be all over the place while she at work and then wouldn't even pick her up on time. So Shirley obviously fell for the self-employed scammer. I've dated and provided administrative assistance to self-employed men before, okay? Ladies, if your man owns a business, you need to be very active in that business, okay? Because if Shirley had been active in Ernest's business, then she would have known he was out there scamming people, okay? So even if you have a career, you need to be involved in your husband's business. You need access to the business financials, and you need to know his appointment schedule. And when I tell you tens of thousands of dollars never make it into your home, believe me, self-employment is a man's dating pool, okay? His getaway to doing what he wants, when he wants, with whomever he wants. And so if you saw the ad at the beginning of my video as part of my intro, and by the way, if y'all know somebody who does intros for YouTube, leave their information down below, because I really want to get this intro is old, okay, and I really want to get an updated intro. So anyway, so if you saw the ad, it contained information about one of my books called Love Like Snow in Florida. And basically that book is the blueprint for what happens when you're bragging to your friends about your amazing marriage, but suffering in silence because his business keeps him away from home. And then, like Shirley Strawberry, you find out he ain't really got no business. He out there scamming people, okay? Now, the characters in my book, they not scamming, but same difference. You know, the wife was in for a rude awakening when she found out what her husband was really up to when he was out here telling her he was meeting with clients and stuff like that. So number 9, you have to tell him, quote unquote, if I have to get up and go to work, so do you. So if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. We've all heard that saying. So Ernesto was working all right, okay? Shirley just didn't know what he was doing at work. And so we refer back to number 10. Ladies, you have to know what your man is doing. And I mean, oh, and men, you need to know what your woman is doing as well. Because there are women out there that, you know, business owners that's doing stuff they ain't got no business doing. So if your spouse is self-employed, you need to be involved. Think about it. This was tragic for Shirley in a legal sense. But what if your spouse is injured or worse, dies, okay? Would you know how to handle their legal affairs, how to access funds, or how to keep the business going if it was a significant source of income? So you need to know what's going on. And then also, you know, Shirley was talking about that vehicle got repossessed. Now, she had the beauty salon and they done rolled up on her to repossess her truck, you know, and then she done told Steve about the repossession. Steve all upset, but then come to find out it was a truck that was in the business name, okay? And so that was one of the things my friend and I were talking about. And she was saying how, you know, he had put all this stuff in the business name, and that's why, you know, I guess Shirley, they're losing everything because it was all in the business name. And so I just want to give you guys this tidbit. You know, people tell you to start an LLC and put everything under the business name, and then you get all these tax benefits. It doesn't work that way. So I'm a business owner, right? My business is operated out of my home. My home is like over 2,000 square feet, right? But my business office is probably 144 square feet. I can only claim that 144 square feet, okay, on my taxes for my business. When I claim my internet, phone service, I can only claim the portion that's related to my business. So it does not make sense to be putting all your assets under an LLC because you really are not getting that big of a benefit from it. But people seem to think that they are, and they are making a huge mistake. And if you're claiming your entire house as your business, trust me, they're gonna come after you sooner or later, okay? So anyway, let's move on to number 8. So you refuse to watch his children while he runs the streets. If it's his time to spend with his children, then that's what he's going to do. And so I came up with that one on my list because I had this girl that used to live next door to me, and real sweet girl, love her to death. But she had kids from this guy. The guy was in a new relationship, and he would come and pick up the kids, and she had other children that I don't think were his, but he would pick up all the children. And they used to go at it all the time. But his girlfriend, you know, she would show up and she would watch the kids. Even if he picked the kids up and went and ran the streets, the girlfriend always made sure the kids were taken care of and had what they needed. But in regards to Shirley, she has a daughter and grandkids because her daughter has children, and so it seems that they had an okay relationship until Ernesto was arrested. Now the daughter has spoken to police, and as I told you before, now he's got new charges. He has a do not contact order and possibly a protective order, and I believe it was stated in the court documents. Let me scroll down here. That the CP charges that we talked about are not related to Shirley's daughter, Sheridan, but we don't know what she told them. And then now her and Shirley's relationship is strained, and so don't let what's going on with your man interrupt your relationship with your children. Okay, that's what I want to say there. So number 7, and then also I just want to remind you guys that this was a blog that I wrote a very long time ago, like almost 10 years ago. And so I had to tweak some of these to fit them into Shirley's scenario. But this is advice that I would give to women when it comes to men, okay? So number 7, you don't think it's a good idea for him to move from his mama's house into your house because he has never had his own place. Just moving from his childhood bedroom to his girlfriend's place isn't a sign of maturity. It reeks of future homelessness. Mature men want to be providers, not leeches. So it seems that Ernesto, you know, was trying to provide, but in the wrong way. Also, as mentioned earlier, Shirley has lost practically everything, including her home. And I can't imagine being 69 years old and everything that I have worked for is gone over a man. It just don't make no sense. And I couldn't figure out exactly what happened with Shirley's house. Did he have her sell the house and then they got another house? Or did he put her house under his business name and now that he's been arrested? Oh, I know what happened. No, I don't know what happened to Shirley's house. I know the house that they lived in, they were behind on the rent. And I think I talk about that later on. And Shirley was kicked out of that house. I'm just not sure if that was her house or if it was a house that they had moved into. And I think when I was talking to my friend, she said that Shirley sold her house. And then him and her got a house, but obviously they weren't paying bills. Or once he got arrested, that was the other thing I couldn't understand. Shirley has had this career with the Steve Harvey Morning Show since 2005. Why is she losing stuff? Or are they losing stuff that Ernesto bought, but she has money that she can go out, get her another place, that type of thing. Whew, just a lot. But anyway, number 6. You refuse to continue in a relationship with him after learning about his illegal activity or womanizing. Come on, Shirley Strawberry. The signs were there. But like a lot of women, you just didn't want to see them. You didn't want the shame and embarrassment of acknowledging you chose wrong and chose wrong in your 60s when you should have known better. So, especially being a celebrity who gives advice to other women, plus the wedding and features in Ebony and Essence, I can see the hesitation. But ladies, embarrassment is embarrassment. You can experience it now or later. If you do it now, you can walk away with your dignity and possessions. But if you do it later, you might be like Shirley and have lost everything and having to rebuild. So number 5, you refuse to bail him out, get him a lawyer, or transport his mama and them back and forth during his trial if he gets arrested. So I don't know if Shirley ever visited Ernesto in jail. I'm thinking she didn't because she probably didn't want to be seen at the jailhouse. But now all her calls are all on the internet for people to listen to. But there are women who spend their money on lawyers. And I think Shirley was trying to get him a lawyer. Wasn't the retainer? Was she talking about the retainer for the lawyer? It was like $80,000, or it was going to cost $80,000. Oh, child, hopefully Shirley went on about her business and she's not getting him a lawyer or nothing. Let's see. Talking about the women going to visit, like every weekend they're traveling, you know, to visit the man in jail. And then if he is in federal prison, he may be on the other side of the country. So now you have to be spending money to get to whatever state he is in. And so a ride or die, I can't be a ride or die because I'm not doing it. And I remember a long time ago, I was on Facebook and I can't remember who posted, I don't know if it was in a group or it was on somebody's page, but whatever it was, the question was talking about visiting people in jail. And so this lady was like, she was married to a guy, they had several kids, and she talked about how she would always go visit him in prison. And I was like, there is no way I would be taking my kids to visit anybody in jail or just putting my whole life on hold. And I think he had like a really long sentence and she had been doing this for years. And she proceeded to tell me, you know, that I didn't have loyalty, that I wouldn't make a good wife because, you know, sometimes things happen and you just have to go with the flow. She loved her husband, she was committed to him, and she wanted him to have a relationship with his children. And so she was going to keep doing this. So that's how I knew I wouldn't have ridden that chick, because I can't do it. Okay, I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't. Which is back up to number 5. So you won't be holding it down, putting your life on hold until he gets out. Coming to visit, keeping money on his books, or any other foolishness while he's locked up. Tell the story. Oh, there's I put a note there. Tell the story about the lady on Facebook. So I just told you guys the story. So Shirley seemed like she was ready for the duration until she learned about Sonia in Florida. Okay, so I guess that's one reason to be thankful for these calls being released, because had they not been released, child, Shirley would have been spending the duration of her life, child, visiting Ernesto in jail. So number 3, you don't think it's cute or acceptable that he is an addict or a heavy drinker. So when he calls at 3 in the morning, needing a ride, wanting you to open the door and other nonsense, you don't bother to answer the phone. Like, I'm not doing it, okay? So Ernesto was Shirley's drug of choice. He had a whole other woman that he's talked to more since he's been locked up than he did Shirley. So even had his bond revoked because he stayed on one, well actually he didn't, well yeah, he did have the bond revoked that he was offered, but he wasn't going to get out anyway because the other jurisdictions weren't going to grant him a bond. But anyway, the bond that he was offered, I think, was ultimately revoked because he's on the phone talking to Sonia about how he's going, once he get out, he's coming to Florida to visit her, and how, I think, was it Sonia that had the employer that had the house somewhere, some secluded house, and then they were going to go to the secluded house. Ernesto, I'm sorry y'all, excuse me, I'm sorry. So Ernesto was a mess, okay, just a mess. So I'm sure there were plenty of nights he didn't come home, okay. So Shirley knew he had another woman out there. And then my friend was, and I couldn't find any information, I didn't feel like going back listening to the calls, but there was something about the house next door. So did the Sonia chick live in the house next door, or did the Erica house, Erica lady lived in the house next door, but she was telling me something about a house next door, the business partner, which I guess would have been the Erica lady. But either way, Ernesto was just out of control, out of control. So let's see. And then also I was sure that there were times that he came home, you know, reeking of Sonia, you know, that he had been with her. And then, I don't know, after talking to Sonia, well, I guess she did mention in one of the calls about when he had come to visit her in Florida, because at one point I was like, is Sonia like one of them pen pal chicks that, you know, fall in love with men that are in prison? But I think she did talk about the times he has come to Florida, so he definitely knew her before he was arrested. But child, where was Ernesto supposed to be when he was in Florida visiting Sonia? And then I was trying to figure out this, and I might have mentioned this because this video, I know, is over an hour now. Is Sonia black or white, y'all? Or is she Hispanic? Is she mixed? Because she don't sound like a sister. And then she was on the one call talking about how petite she is. She's really tiny. She weighed 97 pounds. And they seem to harp a lot on her weight. So I'm wondering, is she skinny? Okay, because it's something going on about the weight. So she might be like 5 feet tall, and I guess 5 feet tall, 97 pounds might be heavy. You know, might not be skinny, okay? And maybe Ernesto, and then that would just be weird if she is like really tiny, like 4 feet tall. Then that would go back to the CP charge, like he has this. We're not even going there. We're gonna move on to number 2, okay? All I can think about is just Shirley suffering in silence, putting up with Ernesto and his mess, knowing that he cheating on her, lying to her, out here committing crimes, now got her name all in the blogs and scandalized, and oh, it's just crazy. It's too much. It's just too much. Okay, let me see here. What was I trying to? So what am I on? Number 2. You're not willing to risk your savings on his latest get-rich-quick idea. Buy him the rims he wants. Help him get caught up on his child support. Bail his homeboy out. Pay his mama's rent so she don't get evicted, or so he can loan it to whomever. Well, we know that Shirley has pretty much lost everything. Ladies, even if you meet a wonderful man, if you own a home, I've said this before, you are under no obligation to add his name to your mortgage or your deed. Now in Florida, and I know California, if you buy a house and you're married, you can get the loan in your name, but you have to put your spouse on the deed. In the event that you pass away, they will have legal rights to the home. I think that, I don't know, Shirley, she should have never let him, if she did indeed sell the home she lived in, she never should have let him talk her into selling her home. If that is true, she could have, I mean, I would keep all my assets. I'm not getting rid of my assets for no man, okay? And that's probably why I'm not married, right? Because I'm just thinking about what could happen down the road, what could happen in the future, and I'm just not ready for it, okay? But if I were to get married and my husband said that he wanted us to, you know, to get a house together, yeah, we can do that, but I'm not selling my house. I'm not getting rid of my house, okay? Because I don't know how long you will be around, and I might need to come back to my house. Or in Shirley's case, where y'all done lost the house that you living in, now you got to go start over and find somewhere else to live. Whereas if you had kept your house, if that is the case, if you had kept your house, then you could just go back to your house, right? So, not doing all that. So, now, could you imagine being almost 70 years old? Now you got to go out and rent a house. And once again, I go back to Shirley, been working with Steve all these years. I'm sure she made a really good salary. I'm wondering, where is her money? Was Ernesto spending her money? Was he scamming with her money? Has he scammed Shirley out of her money? Or was Shirley smarter than we think she is, and she was holding on to her money? okay? And she's not as bad off as we think she is. Okay, so the number one sign, we're down to number one. The number one sign, you may not be a ride or die chick. And let me just put this disclaimer in here. Before I read this one, I want to let you guys know that once again, this blog was written just a long time ago. And I'm only just providing it as advice to Shirley and then trying to insert Shirley's situation into the different points that I was making. So number one on the list, okay, at the time that I wrote this blog, I had a book, well, I still have the book out, that's called The Red Bear Society, which is a young adult fiction book that addresses teenage promiscuity and highlights the HIV epidemic that was impacting the teen and young adult popularities at the time. If you are a parent, you should know that HIV is on the rise again. So head over to Amazon and check out the Red Bear Society. Okay, so I just want to let you know, like you might be saying when I read number one, like what does that have to do with Shirley and Ernesto? Okay, it has nothing to do with it. That's why I had to tell you that, so you won't be thinking that I'm crazy. So number one, back then when I wrote this article was that, what is wrong with this stupid thing? I really need to switch this computer out. Stop being lazy. First, it doesn't want to go down. Oh. This is the problem. I got a drive, a portable drive sitting on the keyboard. That's why I want to move. Okay. That resolved that. Okay, so number one that was on my list is you refuse to have sex with him, protected or unprotected, if he refuses to get tested. Okay. So, in Shirley's case, and living in Atlanta, which is a hotbed for STDs, she should have suspected Ernesto had another woman. Hell, she works for a relationship guru. Just because they weren't in the same building doesn't mean she couldn't call Steve on the phone to ask him questions about Ernesto's behavior. Anywho, so according to the blogs, Shirley scrubbed all photos of her estranged husband Ernesto from her Instagram, so it looks like she is moving on. And then they're reporting that in an emotional strawberry letter on the Steve Harvey morning show on, I guess, this past Monday, Shirley said that she filed for divorce and from her husband Ernesto. She also apologized, as I told you guys earlier, for the comments that she made about Steve and Marjorie when she visited their house. And I guess she said in one of the videos that now, I guess since these calls have come out, that they are now looking at, like she could be violating their, what's that clause, your good behavior. Like you got to represent the company well at all times. I can't think of the legal term that they use. But it looks like Steve is standing by Shirley. He's trying to support Shirley. But I think Shirley hearing the calls, them probably pushing her behind the scene to separate herself from Ernesto has a lot to do with her being able to keep her job on the Steve Harvey morning show. And I'm not mad about it, okay? I think she needs to separate herself from Ernesto and begin the healing process. However, as I stated before, I don't think divorcing Ernesto at this moment is a smart move, but definitely filing for a divorce. She probably couldn't finalize the divorce until, his whole situation is over with anyway. I'm not sure they got too many assets that need to be divided. He could protest the divorce. So, but the fact that she has cut off, I think the girl who does the prison call page said that Shirley hasn't talked to Ernesto since April of this year. I think is when she cut off contact with him, and then we know he's had extra charges since then. So it looks like Steve Harvey, you know, the legal team was like, hey, she got to go. We're not putting up with this. Shirley has, you know, woken up. Okay, she realized that something in the milk ain't clean, and it has a lot to do with Ernesto and Sonia. I'm not sure if Ernesto was messing with the Erica chick. She's not, you know, the most attractive looking woman. But they were definitely scamming together. So if they were scamming together, they probably were sleeping together too. So what else do I have here? Okay, so I had some notes here. Leaked audio, jail calls. So the lady who's doing the calls, the prison call, phone calls from prison page on YouTube, I'm sorry. I thought she said there were 200 and some odd calls between Shirley and Ernesto, but maybe she said that there's over 200 phone calls for Ernesto, and it could be with multiple different people, because there was one call where there were some men on the line that he was talking to. Then we had the calls with Sonia, but I did read somewhere that between Shirley and Sonia that there were 58 calls. Let me see. Leaked jailhouse calls between Ernesto and a woman. Oh, I think 58 is his age. I'm sorry. And Sonia were 90. He spoke to her 92 times for a total of 32 hours over the course of several months. And then he only talked to Shirley 57 times for a total of 20 hours during that same time period. And then we know that Shirley is not talking to Ernesto anymore, and we definitely know she ain't talking to him since these phone calls leaked, right? So Shirley, we're gonna pray for you, girl. We hope that, you know, things get better. Because Ernesto, he's on that phone being all dirty and nasty, talking to that woman about stuff he shouldn't be talking about. That's it for me, guys. I'm tired. All right. This lasted way longer than I expected it to. Shirley, make amends with your daughter Sheridan. Get back in the life of your grandchildren. I know that you were helping take care of Sheridan, but Sheridan is grown, okay? And Sheridan needs to learn how to survive, because there's going to come a time, Shirley, when you're not going to be here, okay? So mend your relationship with Sheridan, but stop paying Sheridan's bill and ensuring that Sheridan has a roof over her head, because that's Sheridan's responsibility, okay? Stop letting people leech off you, Shirley. You know, spend the rest of your years being happy, taking care of yourself, not trying to be a provider and protector to people who aren't returning the same to you. And I wish you well, and then we will just have to wait and see what happens with Ernesto. So guys, that's it for me. Thank you for joining me for my first time back being in front of the camera in over 4 years, okay? And then also look for my recaps of the Country Wayne skits. That should start in the next couple of days or so. So anyway, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.